Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, there is one lesson that the Falcons can learn from Super Bowl 57.
And just a day before Valentine's Day, the Hawks finally got their Bay.
And last but not least, for the culture. I love it. When you think about what happened at the halftime show last night, are we better for it or are we worse off? We'll talk about that all on ATL Day Ones. Let's go.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
I want to start off by saying thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate that from you in advance. Today's episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. But T, when you think about the Super Bowl last night, and as I was watching both of these games, and not both of these games, both of the teams last night, Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. If you're under a rock, you don't know who's playing in the Super Bowl. And when you think about like the plays that were being made by Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts specifically, because you know the quarterbacks are the topic of conversation. Mm-hmm. I started to think about like what the Falcons can learn from this watching this game, right? And I know a lot of Kansas City Chiefs fans won't admit to this, but there were a lot of people, including myself. I was like, Patrick Mahomes, they actually traded up for him in the first round to get him, right? And then, you know, they already had Alex Smith, who was a serviceable quarterback, a guy who, you know, not going to lose you the game, but sometimes there might be times where he's not going to necessarily be able to win you the game. And then you got the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts. They drafted him towards the end of the second round, and they had a plan for him. And I think the Falcons can learn from both teams because they were sold on their guy. They drafted their guy, and they stuck with their guy, even when they had opportunities to potentially replace them, right? Or continue to develop them and not necessarily thrust them into the starting lineup. And I think that's what the Falcons need to do when it comes to Desmond Ridder, because they said they were sold on him for his consistency and what he brought to the table and their interaction with him. I think they just need to roll with that and see what happens, because I'm not in for a regime that is going to draft a guy 1 year and then try to find another starter or a guy for the quote unquote future in the following season.
Yeah, and the blueprint is there with both teams, and actually all three teams, but just maybe in a similar way. So like you said, Alex Smith already being there and actually having won playoff games. So you had someone who showed some success, and then you have an opportunity to get Patrick Mahomes. And reportedly, the Saints were going to try to get him at 11. So they were like, no, sir, no, ma'am. We're going to get our guy because we see something there. And then they have Alex, and they don't rush Patrick Mahomes out there. They let him develop. And then when the time came, they inserted him, and we know that the rest is history. And then you go into Jalen Hurts' situation. And like you said, developing him into a late second round quarterback up to QB1, and Carson Wentz seemed to be ensconced. But then we all know what happened. He lost the locker room. He never got the locker room back. And the locker room was already behind Jalen Hurts, even though he hadn't really taken a snap in a regular season game. And then you get him the right OC and you get him the right pieces, and he's successful. Oh, wait a minute. You got Patrick Mahomes the right pieces. He's got a great OC and he's successful. Fast forward to Flowery Branch. Arthur Smith / Dave Ragone. We're going to call them the co-OCs. Very good co-OC tandem. You've got Desmond Ridder, also a veteran QB in front of him. Pretty much lost everything and everybody and needed to go his separate ways. Let Desmond Ridder have the same opportunity. You don't know. He could be Patrick Mahomes. He could be Jalen Hurts. He could be somewhere right up in that echelon. Because look, Jarvis, at the end of the day, if you can get yourself someone who's a top 5 type quarterback, a top 10 type quarterback, and you start putting pieces around him like, oh my God, wait a minute, Jarvis, you don't have to put pieces around him. He's got pieces. He's got a run game. Woo! With some runners who can actually be pass catchers as well. He's got an all-world tight end in the making. and he's got himself a true wide receiver one. He has weapons, and then he's got some nice supporting pieces there as well. Like, for example, you and I always compliment an Olamide Zaccheaus or Michael Pruitt. And I saw last night there was something that was really cool. One of those runs that Patrick Mahomes was so successful at was because his wide receivers were also willing to block. We have wide receivers here with the Falcons that are willing to do the same as well as your tight ends. So I think you make an excellent point about the similarities there that could happen if the Falcons organization is just patient to see what Desmond Ridder can do, because I suspect that if it doesn't go as they want it to in 2023, while the 24 class of QBs may not quote unquote be as rich as 23, you could probably still find somebody in that class if you wanted, or maybe there could be some veteran out there where you're like, you know what, we'll go after that person all guns blazing. But I'd rather them go after a bunch of hired guns like who did? The Chiefs and the Eagles. Go after some hired guns for the rest of those positions, build around him, and then let's talk. Because I still say, until we get on the other side of free agency, the draft, and into the regular season, as far as today goes, the Falcons look the best coming out of this division. They look the most stable.
Absolutely. And that's all you want, right? Like, and I think the key word you just said, patience from both sides, right? From the organization and from the fan base. And we always gonna bring you guys like what the deal is and what the deal is right here on ATL Day was, because hey, that's what we could do. Now, as far as the game goes, now I gotta ask you this question. So, we all know that everybody talking about the play and the holding call and everything. And now, first of all, being a former athlete, that's absolutely ridiculous. That shouldn't have been called in that moment, in that time, as far as, because the dude literally put his hands on behind the line of scrimmage. I don't know if people even recognize that. And then, the ball was like literally thrown away. So it wasn't a matter of it wasn't a matter of that the ball wasn't even catchable. So, so a lot of people don't want to get into that conversation. But I think that, just from that standpoint, I really, really feel like it probably couldn't have been changed the outcome of the game. But do you really feel like it was that big of a deal that a lot of people was making of it once it was called?
Oh, I definitely do. But with caveats, because I want consistency. So that's not a call. You've been letting both of these teams pretty much play the entire game. Yeah, it was a pretty clean game. We rarely saw penalties unless they were like super, super egregious. You did see some delay of games. You did see some false starts. Those kinds of penalties we saw from both sides all night. But as far as deep ball pass interference or what have you, not a lot of that at all. So yes, timing matters. So if you're going to call that, I need you to call it from the first quarter all the way through. Don't really need you to call that in the fourth quarter. You swallowed your whistle for 57 minutes. Swallow it the last 3, unless it's egregious. And now, yes, he held him twice. Bradbury held him twice, no question. But again, you didn't call it for 3 quarters and 12 out of 15 minutes. I need you not to do that. But I will say this because I still think ultimately the Chiefs kick a field goal and we all move on, potentially to overtime. That's what I was thinking it was going to go to, because I wasn't sure that with just the 2 timeouts remaining and not a lot of time, if Jalen Hurts in that offense would have been able to go down the field and actually get the game-winning field goal. That said, though, Jarvis, here's my thing. There are 17 ways to Sunday that the Eagles lost that game, if we're being honest about it.
Oh, yeah.
The DC lost the game because he didn't make in-game adjustments for the second half. I don't know why he thought the Chiefs were going to come out and do the same thing other than, of course, run the ball. But they put wrinkles in everything that they were doing. Yep. And he literally could not. I mean, it was something, as I know everybody's talking about it, but I guess I have to say it out loud as well. Jarvis, I could see that was cover 0. So if you're not going to disguise a play for average, civilian to see, don't you think all-world Patrick Mahomes can see that? I was just confused as to, I thought Eric Bieniemy did a great job of just throwing some wrinkles in there. He didn't change their game plan very much, but he threw wrinkles in there to throw that Eagles defense off, and he did a great job of it. And it just didn't seem like the Eagles had an answer. So that was part one. I think part two, to me, there were moments where I felt like they played a bit conservatively. They kind of leaned too far into that whole time of possession thing. And it was like, okay, as long as we keep Patrick Mahomes off the field, doesn't matter if we score, we're just going to run the ball for 2 yards. But at least that chunk takes 2 minutes off the board. Yeah, but when he gets the ball back, he'll score in 90 seconds. So it doesn't matter. So I just felt like there were a couple of plays and a couple of decisions and some other things in that entire game that literally could have cost the Eagles the game way more so than just that one call. And you've got to play the type of game where 16-3, 70 sacks, 600, I think it was, and 36 points, 636 points. You guys are the most evenly matched teams in recent Super Bowl memory. Yes. So it always is going to come down to who's going to execute at the end, who's not going to make the mistakes. And Jarvis, you can't get yourself to the point and place where you allow a referee to make the decision of whether or not you win or lose the Super Bowl. Because there was a play, I'll say this, and then I want to be quiet because I told you I knew I was going to rant. I knew I was going to go off.
Yes.
There was a play, I want to say it was in the third quarter, maybe it was the second quarter, but my point being, it was maybe the second quarter because it was a Devontae Smith catch that we all know it was a catch. But anywho, the Devontae Smith catch that really was. I felt like, okay, you've gone to Devontae deep to his right, deep to his left, and it worked. I really wish that they would have gone to Devontae Smith just a couple more times deep, or AJ Brown just a few more times deep. Now, don't get me wrong. Maybe the Eagles were in such great man coverage that their secondary had both of those guys accounted for, maybe more than my eye can see. Okay, I'm still trying to find the second quarter of the game to take a look at, but I just felt like there were times where they got way too conservative for a guy who ends up, I don't know, with like a QBR rating of like 113. It was something crazy, not as crazy as Pat Mahomes, but it was crazy. Why did you not stick with that game plan when the deep threat was working for you all of the first half?
Yeah, and that's the thing, because coming into this game, T, like, that was one of the reasons why I was leaning towards the Eagles. And I even tweeted as such during the game. I was just like, the Kansas City Chiefs on the edges as far as their cornerbacks, they are very young.
Yes.
Specifically, they have a rookie over there, Josh Williams, out of Fayetteville State. Don't get me wrong, my man is out there doing a solid job, but he's still young. And you still have guys like a Heisman Trophy winner in Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, who's an all-man.
Like
exactly. A second coming of Julio Jones, if I can say that, with confidence. So I think, I think the offense did probably get a little conservative and taking more shots. Like, I feel like they should have taken more shots, down the field. I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. So those are some of the things that you got yourself in that situation. And Jalen, God bless him, played a hell of a game.
Yes.
But you turned the ball over too.
Yeah.
And that was a turning point in the football game when you think about the timing of it and the type of momentum that Philly had at that particular time. So those are some of the things that, you have to look back at and say, you know what? We had our opportunity to put those people down. And I think that, and I got to say this, T, because this really bothered me after the game, right? So it's when Travis Kelsey, with his WWE promo cutting self, coming over here talking about nobody believed in us, blah, 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 blah. I'm just dude,
Trav.
Like, first of all, like, where my mind immediately went, T? And I know you're a big time fan of Michael Jordan, right? So it's all that moment right there when Travis Kelsey, which was a very annoying moment for me. I was like, when he said that, I was just like, dude, you're like Scottie Pippen coming out after winning your second championship for the Chicago Bulls.
Yes.
Man, ain't nobody believed in us. Ain't that right, Mike? No, you have the best
it's not
player
right.
throwing
on
you
the planet.
You have the best player in NBA history, doggone throwing the ball to you when he feels like it. You know what I'm saying? When he's tired, or he might want to take a play off. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, you can't have Michael Jordan on your squad and say nobody believed in us. That is absolute nonsense.
I
was just like, come on, dude. Like, y'all are on top. Y'all are the best team in the doggone NFL. Like, you the number one seed.
Right.
Like, just because Bart Scott says y'all weren't going to make the playoffs to start the season, I'm talking about Bart Scott here.
But it's there you go. Because I know, because in my in my morning job,
Right.
the ESPN is pretty much constantly on the monitor,
Of course,
and which I think it was the Get Up morning show, whatever it was, but there were 5 analysts, and 4 of them picked the Chiefs. So miss me with that, Travis Kelsey. And the line,
everybody watch ESPN, right? That's
exactly.
like the go-to.
And then,
you know what I'm saying?
And if you're not watching ESPN, if you're someone who watches the lines also stayed very much even. I mean, when you're a point and a half, there it is. When you're a point and a half ahead, that's a pick 'em. So miss me. And you know, I like me some T Kelsey, but miss me with that.
Yeah, man. Come on, Travis. All right. Anyway. All right. Oh yeah, guys. Pitchers and catchers report today. So yeah, we're about to get ready to start talking some more Braves. So, obviously the questions remain the same as far as, left field, shortstop, and who's gonna be the 5th guy in the rotation. So hopefully we'll get those questions answered as we get rolling. Right here is for spring training. Obviously, and also we'll be having Grant McCullough on very soon.
Yeah.
He's gonna be on, he's touching down there on Wednesday. He'll be down there in spring training. So yeah, it's got a lot of good stuff coming up for y'all. Now, speaking of good stuff, how about this? Y'all know FanDuel is our new sports betting partner, right? So this is the best sports book in America. So why don't you just go ahead and get with the number one team? Because y'all get with us every day, Monday through Friday. Why don't you go ahead and get with the number one sports book in America in FanDuel? Because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. So that's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. And we full swing with the NBA. We're going to get ready to talk some Hawks coming up next. Saddiq Bey, the Hawks got them locked in now. What are they going to do? If you're trying to figure out what they're going to do, go to FanDuel. They got each and everything that you need to do in order for you to win some money, because that's what it's all about. So plus, FanDuel can let you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. You know what the same game parlay is? I bet you FanDuel can explain it. So all you got to do is go to FanDuel.com, and you'll get the no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/locked on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
There's still so much more betting to go on. I know you probably bet on the Super Bowl, and a lot of people were probably mad about the bets that they made. But ultimately, there is still plenty of basketball to be played. So there's still much more to do, and plenty of basketball to be played with one Sadiq Bey now that everything has been worked out with the league office and with the Warriors and Gary Payton II. So the Hawks finally got their guy. And it's really exciting because although he is listed as a small forward officially, he really is kind of like a guard forward. So it's kind of exciting that he has that flexibility, because we're always talking about stretching in that space of anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4. So excited for him. But, and honestly, let's just be real. If we can get another defender on the wing for the Hawks, who's ever going to be mad about it? But it does also bring up the question, Jarvis, of, where do we think he might add value, if you will, to the team? And for me, I think it's just, again, that presence. So, how a lot of times we look to Bogdan Bogdanovic, for example, and we say, okay, he gives that depth on the bench, right? He's kind of your leader for that second unit. If, DeJounte Murray isn't out there with the second unit, but the true leader on the second unit would be Bogdan Bogdanovic, and he gives you what? Instant offense. I feel like Saddiq Bey would be the same. He'd give you instant defense. And so I really, really like that. And on a night like tonight is a great example. So you've got both John Collins and you have Bogdan Bogdanovic as questionable. They're dealing with some soreness there. That's when a guy like Saddiq Bey could potentially play, even if he's not in the starting rotation, because they still may defer to an AJ Griffin, for example. Who knows? But if he's not in the starting lineup, or even an Onyeka Okongwu, depending on who's out of that lineup, Saddiq Bey gives you that defense. He gives you the ability to put him in the starting lineup, or give you starting minutes, or give you some more defense off the bench should you have to put Double O or AJ Griffin in that starting lineup.
Yeah, I think, and that's what you want, is from a rotational standpoint, have absolute flexibility, because we know how these guys, they'll pop up on the injury report in a heartbeat, and I'm not saying that as an indictment against them, but I think that, when you make trades for depth, purposes, which Landry Fields did, I got to give him a shout out to that, even bringing Bruno Fernando in. And I think that he's going to be a guy that's going to be valuable at some point as the season rolls right along. So, when you bring in a guy like Saddiq Bey, He's a guy who's a hustler. He's a guy. That's one thing that when I saw, start looking at, different reports of people who covered him and everything, start talking about the type of player that he is, because I haven't had a chance to really just watch him play like that. Obviously, I think that those one of the things that's kind of stood out to me. What you mentioned is from a defensive standpoint and just being a hustler, a guy that just been willing to do whatever he needs to in order to be able to contribute to getting those dubs night in and night out in the NBA. And we know that you need multiple guys like that. And only having one true wing in DeAndre Hunter, we know how he is from an injury standpoint. So those are the things that, like, a guy like Bey could be a guy that really could be a solid contributor for him, especially, like you said, on a night like this, going up against the Charlotte Hornets.
Yes. And since everyone always wants to look back at one of the things that made the Hawks the most successful when they went on that Eastern Conference Finals run, it was depth. It was depth at any given time. Remember when Trey went out, there was a gasp, but then you just inserted Lou Williams. And of course, Lou Williams had the game of his life. Or you look back at how they got out of the second round and ended up beating the Sixers in Game 7. Well, Kevin Huerter did that for him. So if you can get back to that point in place where you have a few more pieces, like you said, Saddiq Bey is one of those pieces, but also Bruno Fernando would be another piece where you can have that depth. Or if you're having a night where the starters are off, then that's another example. So in addition to the injury, sometimes, this starting rotation just does not operate as a fully functional starting rotation. So when you have guys like that who can come in and give a spark, especially a spark on defense, I'll take it. And not for nothing, you can get some good shots here and there. Not saying that Sadiq Bey can't shoot the ball, but really and truly, if you think about, why he's there, that would be the primary reason, because you want and need somebody who can go in at a moment's notice. And hey, look, if Double O is in foul trouble, or if JC is in foul trouble, or you go back and Dre, who has been in foul trouble a lot of late, you at least have somebody who can come in and do what they need to do, and somebody who does shoot a solid 40% from the field. So yeah, I like that acquisition. And for you and I being two people who had the opportunity to see Bruno Fernando when he was drafted, I can't wait to see what he's going to be about this second iteration of him. I hear that from those who covered him up front and up close, that he's done a yeoman's job of getting a bit better. Now, listen, normally I would say, hey, have your Built Bar ready for the Hawks when they take on the Hornets, because for whatever reason, the Hornets are literally the last team in the Eastern Conference, the last team, period. And yet the Hawks have literally lost to them twice. So that's another thing, Jarvis, that if we have someone on the perimeter who does not mind going out to the perimeter and defending like Bey does, then that gives the Hawks a chance to get a split of the series. But I don't think that should really stress you out, because I think that they're in good position to win tonight. But you might have been stressed out a little last night, especially if you were an Eagles fan. It would have been a perfect time for you to have a Built Bar, because you would have needed that chocolate in your life. If you were like me and you were hoping Eagles fly, and they didn't fly at the end, you needed a Built Bar. 100% real chocolate.
Shout out to Sky.
Right? Shout out. Right. And I said, fly Eagles fly, buy Eagles buy. And when it came time to say buy Eagles buy, you probably just wanted to pick up your Built Bar, because hey, a pick-me-up of 17 grams of protein, that's what you want. 100% real chocolate, some different flavors, churro and peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. I'm an almond fan, so that kind of appeals to me. And if you needed to get out of the house because you just were dumbfounded by what happened to your Eagles, then hey, you could have gone to your local Walmart, and you can still go today, because I'm sure you got a little Super Bowl hangover. Go today. And those are our Eagles fans who we know are in Atlanta, because we have a whole bunch of them here, right, Jarvis? So you guys can still go to your local Walmart and get your Built Bar. You can also go to Sam's Club and get your Built Bar. And it's like a cheat code, because hey, it's only 130 calories and 4 grams. So don't forget, Walmart, Sam's Club, or even in person, you can go to Built, or online rather, go to built.com and order those bars and drown away your sorrows. We feel you. And hey, Chiefs fans, if you guys in Chiefs Kingdom want to just celebrate, go get yourself some bars too and eat up, because I'm sure you guys will be celebrating for the next year.
Absolutely. And we're going to celebrate you when you email atlday1s@gmail.com and say, hey, that's all you got to do. Just say, hey, or I'm listening, or I'm enjoying the show, or I think you guys need to be better. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do, all you got to do is send us a note. atlday1s@gmail.com. People have been from Robert to Jadon, everybody been reaching out. They've been sending us notes. We appreciate you guys and got something in store for you all who have been emailing us. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And also, if you're listening or watching this show and you have not subscribed or left us a 5-star review, what are you waiting on? Join the party. Choose ye today. We don't like people who are lukewarm. We like, if you got to be hot or cold, you better get on the bandwagon right now. We are on our way to 6,000 subscribers. Go be one in the numbers. Am I talking about church or am I talking about ATL Day Ones, fandom? I don't know what's going on. Yeah, but anyway, this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, and the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about, because this is how we get down on this show. Today is no different. How about this, T? Everybody and their mama, we're out here pontificating about whether or not Riri did a good job. She was pregnant. Is she pregnant? Did she still got the mama weight? No, she don't got no mama weight. She's a billionaire dang near, or she might be at a billion. Billionaires don't keep mommy weight. You know what I'm saying? They pay to get it off or they work it off. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, she was pregnant, and she did a performance last night. But I just want to get your thoughts, T. Like, I know a lot of people are saying either way, right? For me, I felt like it was fine. But what
made it fine for you? I just want to know.
I just, me realizing as I was watching the performance, Tenitra and I, the wife and I, we were just sitting there watching the game and everything, and I was just like, Rihanna got a lot of doggone hits, and that was fine, and that was good for me because my expectations aren't that high when it comes to halftime performances. So that's what made it fine for me. I was like, it was cool. I was like, I just realized Rihanna got a lot of hits, but something in my spirit telling me that you don't feel the same way.
Yeah, your spirit man is correct. Because it did nothing for me. I was very excited when I heard that Rihanna was performing. I thought she was absolutely going to destroy it. Right. And it was just underwhelming. It just lacked stage presence. And here's the thing. I hear what people are saying, like, oh, well, she was pregnant. Well, yeah, but she knew she was pregnant when she decided to stick with the gig. So there would have been an opportunity for her to say, hey, this is just not going to work for me anymore and moved on, because you don't get paid for it. And she certainly doesn't need the publicity. So there was no money and no notoriety. We're kind of riding on it. But when I look at the performance, I guess I think about Beyonce, for example, and I'm careful not to compare too much because I do know her entertainment skills are otherworldly. However, she performed Love on Top, if I'm not mistaken, on MTV. And then when she was pregnant, she literally filmed like 6 videos in a day, and she danced in all of them, by the way. Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking about when I think about my expectations of a pregnant woman. Now, granted, I already know Rihanna can't dance when you compare her to Beyonce, and she definitely can't sing and dance at the same time very well. That's a special skill, trust and believe. Yes. But I was expecting her to get in the ballpark of it, and I just did not see that. The other thing is this. We know that sometimes singers have to lip sync for whatever reason. Sometimes it's altitude. Sometimes they lose their voice, and so they may record the track just to be on the safe side. Right. They cannot hear themselves. Things happen. So I'm not vilifying her for lip syncing. I'm vilifying her for poor lip syncing, because when you're saying, what's my name? And the microphone is over here and I can still hear, or your mouth is not moving. Right. Or I hear,
like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Or look, I hear what's my name, but the microphone is over here. That part.
Got a Milli Vanillis in this situation going on.
I can't. It's just, it's not something I could do. I just can't. It was a lot for me because I did have high expectations. So maybe that's what it was. And I think too, like, give her so much credit for being on that high platform. And even though she was strapped in, it was still, hey, look, that's still impressive. But I guess for me, I don't need you to lip sync all the hits poorly. I would rather you just give me 5 or 6 and like kill them, rather than you try to give me a snippet of 14. And at moments, I wondered if you remember the words to some of your songs. Ooh. When you go up as a a solo artist, you've got to be a certain kind of solo artist. I'll put them in 3 categories, and then I'm going to step away, and because I know you've got some more to say too. But you've got to be a Beyonce, and you've got to understand how to command the stage as an entertainer, because you're more entertainer than singer. Or you have to be a boss-all singer like Aretha Franklin, who could stand in front of a microphone and just blow. We don't even care if you sing, dance, dance.
You ain't got to move nowhere. Just blow me away with your vocals. I love it.
That's it. Or Stevie Wonder, that kind of person, because the vocals are just unmatched. Or you can do something like, hey, I want to do an ensemble, because even though I have all these hits, like a Dr. Dre, I'm going to go and get an ensemble cast, because I know that's going to make my performance bigger. It's going to just
seem bigger.
It's going to make it seem bigger. I just didn't feel like it was big enough for the moment that I kind of thought it was going to be.
And that's fair. That's a fair, assessment. I think a lot of people are just, there are some that I've seen via social media, of course, and that I think people is taking it a little bit too far. Like you just gave a very in-depth, fair assessment of her performance, and I think and I can't criticize you for that. You know what I mean? So, but people just taking a little bit too far and just saying like, going low. Yeah, see, this is why Stephen A. Smith said Beyonce was, better, like otherworldly, like you mentioned, performer than her or singer than her. You know what I'm saying? So those are some of the things I was just like, all right, that's a little bit unfair. Like when you start getting to comparisons, especially when you know that she was pregnant, that she is pregnant, excuse me. Right. And not to say that you should take that out of the assessment, but like you said, there are certain ways that you can make it seem bigger than when it actually was, because you had so many features.
Yeah. Because Jay-Z was in the building.
Yeah, Jay was in the building. Like, I don't know what that check would have to look like in order for it to make it happen. But,
he probably would have required a check.
Like, hey, man, I don't care. Y'all got me putting this together. Like, but I need.
I'm going to do, right. And I think you make an excellent point. Like, I wanted to be very, very careful, because I know all of these years it's been Beyonce versus Rihanna. Like, people have always tried to compare who's better. Well, no, that's obvious. That's Beyonce. But and the reason I say that is because she's truly an entertainer. Like, you can look at footage from her childhood where she practiced in heels, dancing and singing. Yeah. That was always her. That's not necessarily the track that Rihanna went up. So I wanted to be careful not to overly compare, but they both have performed pregnant. And I still felt like Beyonce commanded the stage, and she still understood the necessity of the entertainment portion for us, because literally you've got 14 minutes to just blow us out of the water. And that just didn't happen. And I don't know about you, Jarvis, but like that Dr. Dre, that's right up there for me. That might be my number one, other than maybe Prince and B. And like,
I know it may seem like recency bias, but that Dr. Dre and Snoop, oh my gosh.
Yeah, which makes it hard for Rihanna to come after that too.
It's hard to come behind that too, right? You know what I mean? So I think, and that's where my line of thinking came from, because you got Dr. Dre, he has so many hits, so it's just like it's so easy for him to just say, hey, let me get these people, we get this person, and we can just put it all together and just make it one big thing. And it's unfortunate that they didn't do that last night. All right, now, folks, I think that's it. We want to thank you for making ATL Day was your first listen today. Why don't you mess around and make Locked On Sports Today your second listen of the day? Because we know they're going to be talking about all things Super Bowl, Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles. So make sure you go there, because they have the top story of the day, just like we have for the culture, as we just discussed. And, you can find it wherever you find this podcast. Now, I ask you to do one thing every day. Only one ask of you. If you don't do anything else, why don't you make sure that you share love, show love, and most importantly, spread love.